Alright, what the hell is up, everybody? My goodness, have we had just an absolute interesting storm of events over the last little bit since we checked in. So, I guess we'll start off with Bitcoin because it's definitely been the most interesting. So, I guess we'll start off with the schizophrenic chart here. So we've lost everything. We've lost everything. We broke down from our composites. We've broken the trend line that goes back to 2020. 6 years, and things are getting interesting. All right, so we'll just leave that at that. But I think what we're really going to dive into is we're just going to go right to TPO and start, right? So the initial rally up to try and reclaim the 365 VWAP as it does every cycle, like we discussed, failed. So what happened? We lost the 7-day, we lost the 90-day, we lost the 30-day again, and we've done nothing but hold below the 7-day VWAP. So we have a lot of single prints here. Value area low from the 8-week that we built out. We're below all the April value, and now we have more single prints down here. So, I just want to be fully transparent. I called this pretty flawlessly. The only thing I think I kind of got wrong was I said we'd probably rally up into the 365 and 200 and check in with it. But what I'll argue back is the rally was so weak it couldn't even do it. Right, and we know that just from looking at something like USDT dominance, right? What happened? Well, USDT dominance did not hold the last bullish line and completely went off, which means on the push up, everyone was retreating into stables, and sure enough, we wicked it down a lot. And looking at Bitfinex longs, yeah, it broke through the trend as well there. So and they just kept building, and I said the TWAP was going back on, and they were going to start building again, right? So. I mean, I called it pretty flawlessly, I would think. I think I deserve a little bit of credit for that. A little bit. Maybe not too much, but a little bit. So what happened? We rallied into the VWAP of the all-time high. We rejected. We failed to hold above the 2025 yearly VWAP, right? The highest high VWAP from 2025, which is the previous year, right? And we started accepting into the cycle low VWAP. And we did this experiment on Wednesday as well, but whenever you get VWAPs that you start accepting into, let me get this accurate, what happens, right? You accept into it, you try and break out of it, you fuck around, and you drag lower, right? So we're not even like close to full capitulation yet. I think this is just the start, but as every cycle goes, you know, you get a low, and then a lower high, and then a low, and then a lower high, and then a low, and then a lower high. So what I'm looking for here now is when this builds out, is that this is just going to continue to happen, right? So we're probably just going to get a low, build a lower high. I think this will come up and try and retest some of this up here. We'll talk about that in TPO in a second. But we're probably just going to come down. We're probably going to check in with the VWAP down here, right? From an SMA perspective, what did we lose? We lost the 100-week SMA, right? So let's go look here like this, I guess. So we lost our 21, we lost our 52, we lost our 104, 100, however you guys want to say. I like 104 just because double of 52, you can put a 100. It's all going to be relatively close. But regardless, we lost that, right? So now this starts to target. We should probably start looking for the blue line here, right? So we can look at this from a VWAP, which is pretty similar to what we're going to come down to. SMA, whatever. Remember, higher time frames, I like to use SMAs like they're very accurate. But historically, you always go down to the next SMA whenever you lose one on the higher time frames, right? So every cycle, you lose the 100, you go to the 200, right? I think that's what's going to happen. I do. I think we'll come down to the 200 and probably get a rally similar to 2019, right? And just try and get above some things for a bit before some bigger fake out. And then another move lower to 300 to mark the cycle low. So I'll be looking at USDT dominance as well for when we get a pump and whatnot. But the biggest threat now, in my opinion, is that whoever missed this capitulation and kept trying to long up here, which I said was the most dangerous long you can do. You could scalp it, but don't sit in it. I think the bigger problem actually lays in ETH. And the reason I say that is there is a lot of problems in ETH right now. It has lost pretty much every significant SMA, and it's fighting with the 300 right now. And this is on a higher time frame. Like, I guess monthly can come down. But what I think will happen with ETH specifically is it's probably going to just go down to the log band, right? It's probably going to come consolidate in this lower part of the band. And Ben Cowan is pretty firm on this. I'm pretty firm on this. I don't see a reason it would not. I mean, like, it's doing what it does every cycle, right? Like usually in ETH, you get these lows, and you check back in with the top, and then you push up before you make a new low, right? So, like, this is kind of like our band check-in, the push up, the failure to hold above, and now we're probably going to come down to the lower part. It happens, like, every cycle in ETH. So, yeah, we'll talk about this, too. So Garret Jin, remember the guys, that whale that was long, about 100... Well, I don't even remember how much. It was like 130 mil worth of assets. I think it was actually more than that, but Hyperdash doesn't always update properly. But it was that big 1010 whale that was so, like, pronouncedly known for shorting, October 10th, blah, 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 whatever, right? Well, the entire time he was dumping spot with a bunch of other big whales on Binance and other exchanges. Like, they were dumping about $2 billion plus worth of assets, right? While pretending to be long on chain to debate retail to prop this up. And, yeah, like, just... I don't know. This was very well known in the smart trader community, but majority of retail probably didn't know this. But anyways, so this is an interesting tweet here. So this is going about their Aave position. Their liquidation is public at 2280. So you know we talked about the trend research, blah blah blah. They've acquired 1.5 billion ETH, down about 480 million. Their liquidation is 1900 and a HF from 1.3. So yeah, they're basically just paying off their Aave debt, or at least trying to. But when you look at Garret Jin, you got to go back to what he's associated to. He's associated to Xhash, Bit4X. If you guys know what Bit4X is, that was basically a pretty big scam where the founder just kind of fucked off one day and allegedly didn't steal the money, but go on chain and look. The chain don't lie. Anyways, but he's tied to these sketchy entities like Xhash, Bit4X, HTX, and there's one other in there. I think it's like that's not WorldFi. It's something group. God, I can't remember the name. But if you do your back search on Garret Jin, there's a lot of weird connections that go way back. Anyways, but it's interesting. So their liquidation value is pretty close. It's at 1900, right? It's a big threat because being down now that they've sold so much spot, and then trying to save this funding loop from Aave as well on some of their positioning. It just, in my mind, that means something's not right. Now the scarier part of this is this happened over the weekend. So anyone who's away from the desk, like big institutions, whoever that have not come online yet and dealt with any of their positioning or made a move yet, whatever, I think the worst is still yet to come. And I think this is just a glimpse into what's to come. Like I've said before, and I said this earlier, I do think there will be lower highs in crypto as a whole. But looking at the low here that we got, which is about 2220, so 2220, you only got to get down to about 1900. Which is right here, right? And usually ETH goes home into the lower part of the band every time before it does a parabolic rally, right? So how long are we going to consolidate down for? How long are we going to consolidate sideways for? And the fact that the SPX hasn't rolled over yet, right? So there might be some really big liquidations coming up. And I actually think that's healthy long term, but it's bad for, well, it's hard to say. One, I just full transparency, I don't like hating on people, but Garret Jin's pretty slimy, as well as people associated to him. I could care less for them, but I guess it's all the liquidations well on retail and how much money people are going to lose and start calling crypto a scam, and retail interest has never returned, and it's been the lowest it's been in years. And I'll be honest, a lot of people don't trust crypto even more now, especially with Trump and what they did. So I guess what we'll do is we'll talk TPO, right? We have all these fingerprints in DB field. I think we'll at some point come up and try and test some of this value here. What I would be really interested to see, so what I think is interesting is 2024's value for VWAP is still up here, like the lower end of the value is at 86, right? And then the all-time high VWAP value is here about 84. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin tried to do something where it tries to consolidate here and see if it can reclaim it. But I think the bullish, or sorry, the most bearish case would be to reject that and send lower, right? Like to do something like this to fail the consolidation and keep going down. So I wouldn't want to see some kind of look above and fail where you go like this, get a pop, and then just right back down, right? So I just look out for that. I don't think shorting these lows is smart. You've missed the shorts. If you're gonna short, it was back here, right? Like shorting the low in an asset is never good. If you missed it, you may as well just sit in cash and wait to start buying when it moves lower again, right? We're not bottom by any means. We're right at Sailor's average price. It's not a level. It doesn't mean anything. We've lost all the composites. Okay, like we're gonna move lower, right? SPX hasn't even rolled over yet, and we'll get into that eventually. But when I'm looking at the TPO here, I'm thinking, okay, we got single prints up here at those value area lows as well, right? We'll probably come and fill that at some point, I assume, unless the sentiment is so bad and we just keep moving down. By all means, right? But it doesn't look healthy. Like we've lost every multi-day composite possible. Like that was one of the most cleanest breakdown trades you could have made, right? Failed to get above the value high, reject the point of control, and just capitulate lower while you've already lost all your bigger weekly composites, right? So when I look at this on the weekly, right? You lost your big composite. I swear TradingView like changes this all the time. Anyways, you lost all your big composites. I guess what we can do is we can sort of merge these two, right? And then we have another weekly one starting here. So yeah, like value area low is here. I don't think we're gonna recapture that 2-week value high by any means right now. But I would look at these point of controls and value area low here and say, okay, what's gonna happen, right? On terms of a retest, right? Like if we can build out a floor down here and fill these single prints, right? And then, you know, do a little look above and fail and make a leg lower, right? The reason I say that is the SPX hasn't rolled over yet. It could do it this week. It could not. I will say this, though. One thing I want to look at is where was January 23rd? Right here. So that was the highest high. Remember I called this. I said that January 23rd was going to be the start of the next big move. And I said it. It was January 23rd. It was right here. And that was the highest high we got besides the big high back here. This was the second high we got on the failed retest to go higher. And it was January 23rd, and then we started this move down, right? So you could say that, you know, the 14th or whatever, but January 23rd, it was really that shifting point to where we started to move lower, right? User failed to reclaim higher, you failed to hold above all the VWAPs, and you break down, right? So this is kind of the pathing I'm thinking, is that over time, if you can build out a base here, you can fill some single prints here before moving lower again, right? But when you get back up here, everyone's going to go, oh my god, $10,000 rally out of BTC, is the bull market back? But this means nothing, right? Means nothing. When you come up there anyways, you would probably start looking for something like the 100-week, right, which is sitting there at about 86. Might test it and move down. But if the sentiment is so weak, and it has been, I would look to see if the April point of control also caps downside, if it just does something like this and moves lower, right? We know the trend is down. It hasn't been different for months. It's whatever. You just have to wait for the SPX to roll over and really get messy, right? That's really all I want to talk about Bitcoin right now. It's bad out there. There's nothing to do until the Bitfinex long rate goes sideways. Nothing to do until UST dominance bottoms out. There's nothing bullish. If you're scared to trade this market, by all means, I think a lot of people are and deservingly should be. I think you just sit in cash and you wait for price to capitulate lower, go take some time off, touch grass, whatever, You know, if you're not a good scalper, you don't like scalp trading, there's no point to touch any of this. All right, you got to let the idiots battle it out in here. You know, let it consolidate, let it do its thing. There's nothing here that screams confidence for the average retail trader. There isn't. There just isn't. Right? So I would just, I don't know, if it was me and you're not good at trading, if you're a spot holder, I wouldn't even try to get, you know, fantangled in all of this, right? I would just take some time off and just let it do its thing, let the SPX roll over. Okay, so let's leave it there for Bitcoin. I think that's enough, right? Yeah. Let's talk about the SPX weekly bar count, right? So what happened? We closed above all the higher counts in the trend. So like when I'm looking at, how do I do an arrow? So I'm looking at this bar here and this bar here. We closed the weekly below any of these higher candle structures, right? Whether it's the wicks we're looking at or the actual bar itself, we actually closed below them, which is not great, right? The trend hasn't flipped yet. Like we're above the October high, which is good, but not by much, right? So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, the buyers have failed to hold higher, but the bears haven't broken below yet. But we're getting into compression. I've talked about compression quite a bit for a number of months. But I'm looking at that and saying, okay, it means the buyers are not holding it higher for longer, right? We're thinking a weekly here. We look at the monthly, right? Is yes, it's the highest in the trend count, right? But we're still under the previous month's high, right? When we're looking here, where we closed, we're still under this. So that rally Friday, actually, I did about 300 to 400% on in my positioning, and the reason why is I was looking at this and I said, okay, regardless of price moves lower, I'm looking at this previous monthly close coming into our monthly close, right? And what happened? It tried to push up into it. It actually got there during the day, and we'll talk about that. So how about we go down and look at the daily, right? What do we see? So our view app from the low, we're getting way too close to checking in with it too much. Okay, we've checked in once. Okay, well, we've checked in a lot of times, but in this general range we've been in, we checked in once. We've checked in at least 2 to 3 times here. I guess we can count this as 3 because 1 here and then 1 here. 4. I don't know if you call that 5. If you want to call it 5, up to you. But at least 6, and now 7. All right. So we could call it 7 or 8. But we're going to call it to 7 just to be conservative. But that's 7 times in a range-bound SPX that we've checked in. That is a lot of retesting of support. But I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, well, this is the highest high from 2025. This is the view out from the low. And this is the view out from the high. The entire time, we have been bouncing off the low, capping our upside range at the dealer resistance we've talked about, but also staying very much within this recent high from 2025's, or sorry, our last year's high's value. We've just pretty much been staying within it or retesting below it or above it too many times. There's been no continuous breakout. There's been no continuous breakdown. But no one is a buyer, and sellers haven't stepped in yet, but buyers are also failing to hold higher, as we just talked about on the higher time frames. So the entire week, what do we do? Look above and fail that dealer resistance, checked in with the low, failed to hold higher, and closed within between, right? So we go down to the 15-minute. Everything respected view out. We respected view out from the high. We respected view out at the lows. We stayed within it multiple times. And the hold here, this was the best trade you could have made. There was a bunch of just reactionary responses off some of the gamma levels on both Thursday and Friday, right? Like there was lows here and lows here. And what do we do? So on Friday, I knew that if we went lower, we were going to try and close higher because the bulls are going to try and close that monthly higher time frame at least equal or above. So it went down here, checked in with a bunch of dealer support, and a bunch of customers stepped in and bought, and this was the freest long into resistance. And we tried to push into that 60-50 level to close above that monthly previous high. And what happened? Every time it tried during the day, whether it was, earlier in the day, midday, end of day, all it did was sellers stepped in and kept price held below. So that equal high or higher high we were looking for, the trend count, did not work. What's interesting is, like, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, I don't remember what it was, but there was a bunch of dealer long gamma kind of like in this general vicinity here that I'm circling. And a bunch of people just stepped in and sold it off. So the day to actually push above 7,000 and close above it, somebody stepped in and said, not going to happen. And the whole profile flipped, and we went very hard down from Wednesday into Thursday. So something's up. And I've been kind of right about this to say that we weren't pushing much higher than 7,000, but someone is very much defensive up here. And when I look at this, I go, okay, we've been stalling out in this general boxy range for too long. You know, if we want, I guess we can kind of make the trend a little bit higher now if we want. We can make it a little bit equal. What we'll do is we'll go like this. Let's say this is our new range. So we can, you know, if you want to keep the October range, by all means. But I say this is our new range here. What I'm worried about is if the SPX is about to do what Bitcoin did and accept under VWAP. And with that being said as well, where we look for from an EMA perspective, that's your 20 and that's your 50. And it's getting too close now, right? So when I look at this, I'm thinking if we lose this and we lose this, or hold on, that was really bad drawing. If we lose the blue and we lose the orange, right? We want to look at it from VWAP perspective, EMA, whatever. It's not going to be good because sellers are going to see is that as this is pushing higher and we're failing to break out, everyone's probably going to get spooked and say, oh my god, you know, eventually these moving averages come up, we're going to start accepting under those, right? And what happens when you accept under those, right? Here's 2025, right? Early 2025, right? Failing to hold above, retest 2 times, eventually holding below, rechecking to reclaim, failed, reclaim, move lower. Right? And every time this happens, you know, you start getting these big capitulation levels, right? Whether it's just little drawdowns, big ones, whatever. But when I look at previous market crashes, that's the start. When you start to lose 20, you start to lose 50, you start retesting 2 times, you start to look above and fails, even though you're creating lower highs. You know, eventually the trend totally flips, right? So when I look at this, I'm thinking, oh my god, if we lose this trend, we gotta start targeting down here. It's probably gonna mean nothing because we know, like, they move through 6,700, 6,400. If we lose that, dealers are going to start selling into that pressure as well. And when I look at something like the VIX, the entire time this consolidation move was happening, the VIX did nothing but try and rise and keep pushing higher, right? Like this was your vol crush low, and now it's been doing nothing but trying to perk up this entire time. And they're not able, even though the VIX was the most short it's ever been, to hold this down. It's continuing to rise. Another thing to confirm this is the VVIX. The VVIX wasn't even fucking phased. VVIX just kept going, and now it's closing above 100. So when I look at the VVIX, I think roughly, like here, if we were to go, let's go 129 here, and then 100. So, you know, similar things to the VIX, where the volatility of volatility is saying, higher. And we've talked about VIX Central, we've talked about VIX Future, Structure Curve. It's starting to scream to me that, things are getting too compressive. We're starting to really lose steam. And volatility saying, I might start calling bullshit soon. And we got an SVIX sell signal as well. Which means that, you know, when the SVIX is inverted, so you short it, or it goes short when volatility is about to get really hard, right? It's a 1x short future. And this got a sell signal, which to me goes, okay, whether it's February, March, April, sometime in Q1, we're gonna get some volatility. And I'll be honest, I think it's February, and I think it's March. I don't think it's April. I really do. I think it will be in February personally. But I have no problem saying March either. I don't know. That's just, I'm thinking of my own contracts and stuff. But I think it's very, very close. I think it happens this week or next week is where we really see that big move start to unfold, right? There's been no buyers that want to buy these highs, or at least hold them up there. There's people that are trying to scalp these pullbacks, but no one is saying, holy shit, buy this and keep going, right? And I think it's time. I really do. I really do. The USD JPY intervention, it's done nothing. Dollars starting to kind of go up with the new Warsh Fed announcement. Long end of the yields are still relatively elevated, but still range bound, but they're not really going down. They're still trying to grind higher, right? The 2-year yield as well, it's just consolidating, but I'd argue you probably got kind of some bull flag going on where if we were to look, I would look for this to at some point make a reversion higher. And when the 2-year goes up, that means the Fed's probably got to raise rates, right? But when it goes lower, it means they got to cut. But it'd be interesting to see if this breaks out. But the long end of the yield by no means is showing signs of slowing down in terms of breaking out, right? And same thing with the Japanese yields. They barely moved lower. Like I guess you could call that a decent size down, but 10-year, 30-year Japanese yield, you know, yen again trying to move up here. Like it's up $3, almost $4 off the low. $3 for sure, probably 4 in like a day or two. Who knows? Right? Maybe it's just filling this gap. I don't know. But you know, the dollar got a pretty good reactionary bounce here, and it also lost that major level, right? Something like that. So it's weird. It's very weird. Metals went through a very large correction as well. Like oil's down 2 points, but metal itself, metal wiped out a few trillion this week. And I said Q1 and Q2. I said it was due for a sizable drop at some point. Like I said, it was due for a correction that was going to cool off. My target was 5,400. It went 5,598. We'll call it 5,600. Sorry, I was 200 points off. Which, in retrospect, on a multi-trillion-dollar asset, I don't think that's that bad. But I was a little wrong. Silver, you know, nearly did a 50% correction. That's about 40%, right? So I don't know. I think metals are cooling off just temporarily, but I do think the rally continues in them. But one thing really interesting that I wanted to spot, and this adds to the volatility aspect, was our credit spreads. That's a pretty good tick up off the low there. That's 10 plus points off the low, right? Whether you're looking at from the yield or the options adjusted, however you want to look at it. But that's a pretty good reaction on a breakout. I would not want to see these blow out and move a lot higher for the bulls because that's going to follow the VIX and it's going to get really rough. Speaking of VIX, let's look at this. Dealers are short 372,000 contracts at 25, and it's just a naked position. So there's no huge defense. There's a little bit through the 20s, but the problem is the VIX has been rising the whole time. So what happens is if the SPX decides it's going to pull back, this is really going to moon. Like really going to go. And when we think about how options works, dealers are going to have to buy this all back if we close and get above 25 and push higher. They're going to have to buy all these 370,000 contracts back and absolutely send this thing. And this is very similar naked positioning you see right before a big capitulation like we did in March and April of 2025. I'm worried for people on the other side of this trade that if this happens, it is not going to look good. I think February will be pretty brutal. But I think March is where you're really going to see the big like kickoff, right? Another thing is CTAs here are going to have to start selling up. So 60. So this is their sell range. So ES to SPX. So what is that? 6681. That's below 6,700. And what is it? Is it 9.2? Pretty close. So what this means is the commodity trading advisors are going to be selling off assets as well. Now, when I think of this, this is terrifying to me because if we have a options-induced sell-off from market makers, then all the big boys are going to sell off, plus the CTAs. It's going to create this thing where dealers are going to have to buy back all these shorts and put pressure to the downside, right, to hedge their positioning. The VIX is going to shoot, and it's just going to really create just our absolute Armageddon, in my opinion. And I've said this, like I've been saying this for months. If you lose 6,700, it's very, very, very bad. And if you lose 6,400, it's way fucking worse. So I'll be targeting some sort of high off the previous, or some low off the previous high. I don't think that will be the low, just looking at options positioning. I think it's going to be closer to like 56, 5,800. But if you blast through that, I would start looking way closer to like 5,000 again. But it's a midterm year, and these things happen. You know, it doesn't mean we have to go that low. But I want to see like a really good buy confirmation signal out of both breadth and CSCO to say, no, time to buy. But I'll say this, we got a sell signal here, right? And every time we get them, you know, it's usually near some sort of a peak, right? This means nothing because this is hold on, this is a false flagger here because you just came through consolidation, so don't worry about that. But when you start getting big clusters like this pushing into a move, you know, that's when it's starting. So you start to go, I'm not sure. And when I look at something like Core 1 month as well, so when I look at Core 1 month and I see these lows, I go, oh my god, like here's our lows here. These are pretty equal lows, right? We could go 1, 2, 3, 4. We could go 4 total lows here. When you get these lows near the highs, when the SPX is near highs, and it starts to revert, and the SPX comes down, it's usually spills pretty good capitulation, right? So I would be very focused on that personally, very focused. Okay. U.S. futures here. What the fuck is going on? So hold on, let's look at this. So it went low, high, and then just went. I don't know why this happened. That's a weird reversion. Like it was super low and open, and then it wiped out all the lows, and that just dropped a lot. I don't. Okay, well we'll see. It doesn't matter. It's pre-market, after, whatever you want to call it. It just doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know. Things don't look good. I guess what we'll do quickly is just look into the TPO of the market in terms of the SPX and indices. This. So what I'd be looking for then, this is interesting. So we closed right at the point of control. So I guess this would validate a more downside movement because it failed to hold above in this 2-day composite. That's what I would look for. Is a trend lower for sure. If this holds, okay. That's all I can really say in terms of the SPX. Nasdaq. Let's see that real quick here. Yeah. So I think I called this out last time. We did a video on Wednesday, but I said it was probably just going to sweep these highs, right? Like I said, it was going to come here and do something like this, and sure enough, it did and sold off pretty hard, right? That was, you know, earnings were weird, right? Earnings were very weird. We're just barely beating, you know, missing bad forward-looking guidance. Just, yeah. So, I don't know. That's, the Nasdaq sure looks weak. That didn't even try and go off the value area low here. It's just, wow. Okay, well, I think we're good to leave it there. I don't think I missed anything this week really crazy. I don't know. Bad news about companies like Oracle and CoreWeave and whatnot. I don't know. Like, it's nothing too crazy. But, yeah, if anything crazy comes out, I mean, I'll post tweet about it. I've been tweeting quite a bit lately. Okay. Well, I think that's it. Yeah, if this helped you guys out or you enjoyed the video, let me know. But right now, I would say just eyes on a hawk. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna leave it here. Yeah, love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.